Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is 5 reasons why luxury shopping is not a hobby. Are you triggered yet? I was. When I came to this realization, I'm going to share with you 5 reasons why I believe that luxury shopping is not it's technically a hobby, but it shouldn't be. I strongly discourage you to have it as one of your main hobbies. So let's get into it. I'm gonna delve into the definition of a hobby. Look, we're learning. Lessons with Caitlin. So according to Google, a hobby is an activity done regularly in one's leisure time for pleasure, i.e. her hobbies are reading and gardening. So technically, by the definition, shopping could be a hobby, but I want to share with you the 5 reasons why I don't necessarily think that you should fall too far into the shopping hobby realm. Okay, so reason number 1 why I don't believe that luxury shopping or shopping in general should be a hobby is, come on, like the elephant in the room, the sustainability element. Now, speaking of, this is not particularly my area of expertise, which is why today's video is a collaboration with Jess from The Chic Professor. Truly genius, intelligent, wonderful woman. I'm gonna have her video linked down below. She's gonna touch more on this point over in her video because in my mind and in my eyes, she is the queen. She's very educated in this topic and she's very insightful and very knowledgeable. So I'm gonna hand over this point to her. I highly recommend that you go over and check out Jess's video because truly, what a world of knowledge that woman is. She will delve deeper into this point, but in a nutshell, the sustainability element, 20, 30, 40 years ago, sure, like nobody would have batted an eyelid at the idea of shopping as a hobby. I feel like we're a lot more informed to the fact that we are literally turning the world to shit. So I think that with that in mind and knowing that, I just feel like it's somewhat irresponsible to be shopping to the extent of it being a hobby and really going hard with the shopping. Number 2, now when I think of hobbies, when I think of the things that I do as hobbies, most of the time they don't add extra stress or anxiety into my life. And if shopping is your hobby or your main hobby, it's most likely adding more stress and anxiety to your life. And I'm gonna explain to you why. Especially if we're talking like big expensive purchases, the amount of regret and anxiety that can go into a luxury purchase is not at all a leisurely feeling in my mind. The decision fatigue when you stand in store and you're trying to decide whether or not you should get this bag or that bag, or whether or not you should even be spending thousands of dollars on a bag, creates so much decision fatigue within me, and it can sometimes be incredibly tiring, incredibly anxiety inducing, especially if you make a purchase and then a few weeks, months or years down the track, you then come to realize that bag wasn't for you, or it's damaged, or it doesn't fit in with your lifestyle, and you just feel like you've wasted all this money, and then you're like, oh, I need to sell it. And the world of selling, if you are not an influencer, if you do not have a platform, it's a friggin' nightmare, okay? I find selling stressful. If you shop as a hobby, it's actually been proven that your impulse control is actually dulled. In general, shopping regularly makes it harder to control yourself. When you overshop, your tolerance for spending actually increases, which completely distorts your perception, and it just becomes almost like more normal to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And I can definitely attest to that. Like when I think back to 5-6 years ago, the idea of spending $5,000 on a handbag was just like, whoa. It was a concept that I was having trouble grappling with. You know, before I came to this realization, spending $5,000, I was almost finding it like somewhat easy. Like I was like, oh yeah, cool, that's somewhat affordable for a designer handbag, which is, it's strange how it just completely distorts your perspective and you kind of get used to that idea of overspending. In that way, when you think about it, it's almost like any other addiction. You know, if you go back to some of my early videos, I used to joke about shopping addiction. I used to kind of like laugh about that and think it was really funny, but I don't know, like, I mean, I think naturally I'm quite a deep thinker, and when I really sat down with myself and thought about it, it is an addiction for some people. And when we think about other addictions that I'm not going to mention because this video will probably get demonetized, but you know, when we think about some of the bigger, more mainstream addictions that we can think of that are more heavily spoken about, when it comes to shopping, it's not something that's spoken about. It's not, because it'll affect the economy. I truly think that if we really looked into it, if it was really explored, I think that a lot of people, a high percentage of people and possibly women would most likely have some form of a shopping addiction. And that's scary. So when I kind of thought about my hobbies, I think that hobbies are something that I do on like a somewhat regular basis. So either on a weekly or fortnightly basis. That's what I probably will consider like my ride or die hobbies. And if you are shopping and spending money on a weekly basis, I don't think we need to go into why that's not healthy. And not only for you and your mental state, but also your bank account, okay? But like I said, Jess will delve more into that. I suppose just to wrap up this point, I don't think that a hobby should really turn into an addiction. Oh, and one more thing. I know number 2 is like quite a large point. The people that shop for a hobby are the ones that for the most part always tell you that they have nothing to wear. I used to be in that boat. I used to have a wardrobe full of crap, and I used to be the one complaining about having gaps in my wardrobe, having nothing to wear. And I think it's because when you shop for hobby, you don't really have a plan, okay? You don't have a plan. You just go in, balls to the mother effing wall, blind to a sensible mind, just shopping for hobby. And that leads to buying pieces that you don't plan out, you don't think, you don't really consider whether or not you need them or whether or not they fit into your lifestyle and your personal style and your wardrobe. And it often leads to you buying more trend pieces, like the hot trendy items, the pieces that are more that trendy piece of the season, like, you know, that kind of thing. And when you do that over and over and over again, you're gonna have an entire wardrobe of these trendy hot pieces from seasons past, but you're not actually gonna have any staple foundation pieces in your wardrobe to be able to build off of. So of course you're going to complain about having nothing to wear because your whole wardrobe is just mismatched trend pieces from seasons and years gone. And you're like, what the hell? Like, how do I piece all these things together? It doesn't make sense. Can I get an amen? If you're loving the vibes here, if I'm tickling your brain in some way, shape or form, I'd really love it if you would consider joining us. We would love to have you here. So you have to do is scroll down, hit that subscribe button and ring my bell. Number 3, we're going to talk about the ever so famous 2 words, and that is retail therapy. So when I really kind of thought about this, I don't consider therapy a hobby. I don't consider getting my nails done, getting my facials, getting my hair done, getting massages to be hobbies. I consider them to be maintenance, therapy, a bit of self-care. And I think that they, for me, sit in a different bracket as opposed to my hobbies. I consider working out and doing yoga a hobby because I feel like it actually betters me in the long term and it makes me feel better long term. It's good for my self-development and my personal development. Shopping, as much as I enjoy it, I don't consider it a hobby because I feel like it doesn't really contribute over time to me in like a positive way. Other than just like from an outside vanity perspective, like it doesn't really do anything internally for me long term that's gonna have a positive impact. So number 4, why I don't believe that shopping should really be considered a hobby is, I mean, this has really become more apparent since 2021, but I think that a lot of people would argue, and I used to argue this, that I considered shopping a hobby. And it was mainly probably because of the social element that went along with it. But when I truly sat down with myself, I do most of my shopping online. That's where I get more of a wider variety of pieces. So the social element is completely taken out of that. If you are just sitting at home by yourself on your computer or your laptop or your phone, that really takes out that social element of it. And, you know, when I think about my other hobbies, sure, a lot of them done are alone in silence, but, you know, more of my hobbies that include other people, that's an important element to consider when you think of a hobby. If you're sitting at home alone, isolated, it's a bit of a dangerous and slippery slope to go down if you're considering that to be a hobby. Trust me, been there, done that. Many years of my life wasted scrolling the new arrivals. Number 5 was kind of drawn from my own personal experience, and that is that when you overshop or when you use shopping as a hobby, your desires are really kind of skewed. It's harder to become in touch with the real reason as to why you're doing what you're doing or what you actually may be craving emotionally, like, or just in general. Your desires are skewed and your perception is skewed, and I think that you actually lose touch and it's hard to understand what you're truly craving because your mind is just set on, okay, like, how do I get this next thing? There may be something in your life that's lacking, and that was definitely what it was for me. Your mind is just on a constant loop of the next thing, and you're obsessing over how to get that next thing. Your mind is never truly silent enough to hear what you might actually be needing and what you might actually be looking for and what you might actually be craving, and You know, there may be a there may be a void that you were trying to fill, but you didn't even realize it because your mind's not actually silent enough for you to hear it. You know, I used to be so heavily addicted to sugar, so heavily addicted to artificial sugar, sweets, chocolate, like lollies, cakes, desserts, like truly one of my favorite foods. I realized that I was doing it, especially in 2020, to fill the void that I felt was lacking. You know, I felt lonely, I felt alone. I didn't have much of a social life. My dating life was lacking, to be honest. It's still lacking. It actually used to bother me, whereas now I've kind of dealt with it and I'm okay with being single. Whereas when I was using like emotional eating as a coping mechanism, it was to feel good. It was to replace the fact that I didn't have the company of a man and I didn't have a big social life and I was feeling lost and I was feeling unfulfilled in work, and I was using emotional eating to make me feel good, you know, to kind of release that, what's that freaking chemical? I don't know, I'm not a scientist. What is it? You know what I'm talking about, but like that happy hormone. I was using chocolate and sweet food to kind of release that and make me feel good. When I woke up and thought, wow, you know, I'm eating way too much chocolate, I need to replace that addiction with another addiction. Not at all recommended, not at all healthy. So instead of sitting on my ass at the end of a day, eating sweet food, feeling all happy and good and numbing my feelings, the only thing that would stop me from doing that would be to distract my mind by scrolling new arrivals. And sure, like my waist was smaller, I was losing weight because I wasn't eating so much shit. But mentally, I wasn't feeling any better because I was just replacing that addiction with the other addiction of just scrolling new arrivals, adding to cart. I think the key thing to doing this and to helping yourself kind of get out of this loop is just the realization factor and actually sitting with yourself enough to really think, okay, this is happening, what am I going to do about it? I highly recommend you exploring this if it's something you've never done before. It will give you the chance to actually find a more rewarding, feel-good hobby that you've never explored before, something that's amazing. Me personally, I went to my first salsa class last week. And am I coming back? Hell to the yes, I am. I had so much fun, and salsa dancing is like a lot harder than you think it would be. You know, getting away from shopping and spending less time shopping really can open your eyes. You never know what you might experience, who you might meet. You know, just getting out there and just one little moment could change your life. At the very little, just make you feel good, or, you know, release some happy hormones, get your sweat up, get you laughing, get you smiling. I was like smiling and laughing for the entire 60 minutes of that salsa class. But, you know, on the more extreme end of things, just one little action, one little change can possibly change your whole life. You know, you could meet amazing people, you could make new friends, or you could find out that your true calling all along was salsa and go on to the international salsa championships. I don't know. That's just some things I've been thinking about lately, and that's why I no longer consider shopping to be a hobby of mine. Don't get me wrong, it's still something I think you can enjoy. I think if it's done with friends, I think if it's something that you can do, but maybe necessarily you're just going to look at things, you know, window shopping, if you enjoy the textures, the feels, the colors, the cuts, the design elements, you know, if it's something that you instead explore maybe fashion as opposed to shopping, or style as opposed to shopping, you still really enjoy shopping and you're not really ready to give it up to that extent, instead maybe take that focus off of you and instead, you know, go out with friends, or maybe help other people with their purchases, because I think you'd probably feel a little bit better. You'd probably feel a bit more warm and fuzzy. One, because you're not spending your own money, but two, most importantly, because you're actually helping someone else feel better about themselves. So I would love to hear what you think of today's video, and if you've ever considered shopping to be a hobby of yours. I used to consider it a hobby of mine. Please share with me that in the comments down below, and also I'd love to learn more about you. Please share with me what some of your hobbies are outside of shopping or fashion, or outside of YouTube. I would love to hear what makes you tick. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I'm gonna have another one linked for you right here. If you haven't had enough just yet, feel free to join me over there. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next one.